It's Jordan and Sheldon here for another episode of NFA Talk. This will be episode 6, and today we got some exciting news for you. And as you can see in the bottom corner there, that's how we're going to start things off with that little bugger that seems to be slowing things down in the firearm industry. Hey Sheldon, how's it going?
Pretty well, Jordan. I hope all is well out there and you're staying safe.
I'm staying in quarantine.
Oh, right on. Yeah, it's quite a shock to everybody. This is really unprecedented since the Spanish influenza of 1919. I don't think we've seen quite a pandemic like this. We had SARS. We've had these other various diseases that have been very caused big concern in people, but this has been something that has been very much unprecedented. I've been in communication with people all over the world who are feeling the effects of this, people from Switzerland, France, Belgium, United States, and so on. And what we're really seeing here is something that nobody has ever experienced before. And we're seeing governments taking very strict measures, which they're probably quite proper to do so, in order to make sure people are following safe procedures, educating people about washing their hands and all of that. But we're also seeing steps taken to try to limit freedoms and to take issue with people's ability to buy firearms, and that's of course a concern. It's certainly a problem when we start seeing that kind of activity, and there are certainly steps that need to be taken to make sure that governments fulfill their responsibilities to their people. But at the same time, it's also very, very disconcerting when they start limiting personal freedoms to the extent that you think they might not be giving them back.
Exactly. I don't know how it is out your way, but in Ontario, they've shut down all the ranges, and they've also closed all the businesses. So
Yeah.
all the firearm stores are closed, and all the ranges are closed.
Well, this range stuff out here is there's still some ranges that are open. It depends, right? Some have pretty open access, and there's very limited likelihood of anyone being able to catch anything. I mean, I'm up in the Northern Health Authority area, which is in the central and northern interior of British Columbia, which has not really been hit very hard with the virus yet. We've got something like 9 confirmed cases. There's at least one in the hospital on a ventilator now, and it's not been hit to the same extent as other areas, but people are taking the wash your hands and not touch your face stuff very, very seriously, and that's a good thing. I think it behoves people to be responsible about what we're having to deal with here, and that seems to be working. Some communities have gotten fairly isolationist on it, at the same time, we're seeing the typical runs on firearms and ammunition at the local stores. I've been to most of the firearms retailers or communicated with those who I haven't been to about what's been happening with their particular businesses, and they're busy. I mean, even the small mom and pop operations have been selling out of some kinds of ammunition. 30 Winchester has been very, very popular, and I think people are taking prudent steps to make sure that they're able to defend themselves if need be, in case things break down in any significant way. A lot of this has to do with the supply chain, Jordan. And what we're looking at is the old story of, for want of a nail, a horseshoe was lost. For want of a horseshoe, a horse was lost. For want of a horse, a rider was lost. For want of a rider, a message was lost. And for want of a message, a battle was lost. So I think we're seeing that sort of concern with the supply chain. And we hear lots of talk about essential services. And the thing, of course, is what's essential, because what we're finding out is that the economy is so integrated and interwoven that people who you may not think have essential positions actually probably do. Someone who's a clerk at a grocery store working part-time from high school all of a sudden has an essential job. You have, of course, the obvious things, medical providers and so on, but how do they get their equipment? How do they get their supplies? And if you're someone responsible for making sure those people get paid, well, then suddenly you're essential as well. And certainly farmers, certainly people who can provide food, the transportation industry, all of these have proven to be extremely essential.
Yeah, exactly. And here in Ontario, they closed down pretty much everything except for gun stores, gun ranges, and the little mom and pop shops. And it really makes you wonder what's going on here.
Well, and the terrible thing is the virologists, the whole idea of what's going on is to flatten the curve, as they say, so that we don't have a huge spike that overwhelms our healthcare system and thus causes more deaths than it otherwise would. And it seems mathematically, that's what the mathematicians and virologists are saying, is that the curve is getting flattened and we seem to be doing the right things to limit the spread. But the problem with the flattened curve is that means that we spread out the misery longer. So we're going to see this go on for a good long time, several weeks, if not months, into the future. And some predictions are that this will come in at least 2 or 3 waves. That we'll think we'll have it fixed, and then another wave will hit us. And this has fundamentally changed the way we're going to be doing things. And I think in terms of globalization, what we're seeing is that the positive and negative aspects of globalization are fully revealed for everyone to look at. The communications between countries is a good thing, certainly, but the rapidity with which a pandemic can spread, with the rapidity with a virus like this can spread, is certainly a function of a global society where people traveled so easily.
Right. And how do you feel about what the government voted on early this morning?
Well, I have some concerns. I mean, I'm quite vigilant of the government's ability to try to take extra control and authority for themselves. Certainly, the provinces have not been so accepting of the federal government's willingness to try to invoke the Emergency Powers Act, but there is certainly a need to make sure that people understand how serious this matter is, and it is serious. This is an event which is unlike anything we've experienced in our lifetimes, and it needs to be dealt with strictly, carefully, and but prudently at the same time. The problem for all of us is that this is not just a health disaster. This is a social and economic disaster as well. And I think when you start talking to people who have businesses, people who work in the service industry or tourism, they're out of work, and their chances for getting back into viable work are quite limited. And they still have to pay rent, they still have to pay their mortgages, they still have to feed their families. And when you start taking away people's ability for food, clothing, and shelter, you find yourselves in desperate times indeed. And that's where firearms ownership and the ability to protect oneself, all of that starts to come to pass when you have this breakdown in supply, logistics, and in authority.
Right.
It's a scary time.
So I'm going to bring in Charles Zach, our executive director, and let's get him to weigh in on some of this stuff.
Hey, Charlie, how are you doing?
And hey, Charles, how's it going?
Great. How's it going, guys?
It's going great.
So we've just about got our survey ready to publish, Charles.
Yes, we do. It's going to be exciting when it hits the market out there. It's going to be great.
Yes, I hope so. I've got to say I'm rather heartened by some of the responses, but I'm extremely disappointed with some of them as well.
Well, you know what? I look at this as a benchmark. We're going to we've captured some really good answers from some of the key candidates, and we'll find out later what happens with the rest of them. But I think from the discussion that's going to be generated from the survey, I think we're going to see some good things come our way.
I hope so. I'm a little surprised Peter MacKay hasn't responded at all yet. I was on his podcast asking him why he hadn't responded, and I didn't get any answers to my questions. Did you have any luck with him?
You know what? I've tried every different avenue I can think of. I met with Peter MacKay, as you know.
Yes.
I had all the email addresses that he gave me. His campaign manager gave me his personal email address. I sent the survey to all those email addresses. I sent it to LinkedIn. I sent it to his messenger. I sent it to his podcast. I sent it to his website. And what I'm finding now is that even on his live websites, I'm putting up the the invitation to partake in the survey, and then they're immediately deleted. So I don't know what to make of that. Time will tell. We've given Peter every opportunity to partake in the survey. He's the only one that has not responded to the survey. I leave it to the audience to basically draw their own conclusions on that. We are here just to collect the data, present it in a fair and honest manner. That's what I'm trying to do with all the candidates. We are not biased in any way. We're not supporting anybody or endorsing anybody at this time. We are here for our members, and we're trying to get as much information as we can so that they can make the decision in the end.
And I think that's the role that we have had. I mean, previously we've done this for leaders. We've also identified candidates in every riding in the country. We've done that before for elections. But this is an important time, and I mean, it's pretty clear that the current government is not capable of meeting our needs, and in fact is hostile to us. And we're looking for friends in the Conservative Party, and we seem to have a few, but in their leaders, we need people who are going to lead rather than just follow old-time Liberal or red Tory gun control policies. That they're just not acceptable anymore.
Absolutely, and as you know, I've been lobbying on behalf of the NFA. I've talked to many MPs now, Conservatives, Liberals, NDP now. We do have friends out there. Unfortunately, we don't have a champion yet to take on the narrative of the gun community. They still believe that they are the experts in what we need to have in terms of our freedoms and rights, and they are not following through. I'm hoping that at least somebody will one day pick up the gauntlet and run with this, like Gary Breitkreitz once did. We need another one like him.
Well, Bob Zimmer has taken up the role Gary Breitkreitz has, and I'm optimistic he's going to step up into that further as he feels it out. And he has been trying to do the right thing, but you're right. We need more champions there. It's certainly the case that we've been lacking someone who is really pushing our issues in a big way. I mean, Bob certainly pushed for the AR-15 with presenting that petition a while back. And that was a good thing, and it was a good effort, and I appreciate that. Bob's a friend of mine, so I feel like I owe him a bone to be able to chew on. He's done some good work for us over the years, but we do need more, and we do need some commitments from this party that would be our friends, because they're looking for our support, and I think the support could be there. But we can't just be voting to get Trudeau out. We need to be voting to get what we want in, and to have the shops look empty to us, that nothing in the windows, that isn't working for us. If you're going to go shopping at the store, and right now it's not a good time to go shopping at any store, as we know. But you want to see that the wares on display are things you want to buy, and what we have a problem with now is that those things that are on display in the stores are not things we're all that interested in. It's
Absolutely.
more control. It's statist policies that would take away people's firearms rights. And I think part of the problem for the Conservatives is they've been getting mixed messages from some of the firearms groups.
Yes.
Our message has been consistent. Our message has been solid. Our message has been firm. But other groups are offering basically pro-gun control messages, which takes away from our particular position. And that's not helpful in order to get real change. It's going around saying, well, it's not going to change. It's okay the way it is. Can we have this and this? Or it's not going to get it. We've got to peel the onion from the outside down to the core. And we're not going to do that with the mixed messages that some groups have been putting out, or at least one group in particular.
Absolutely.
No, and you know what? I concur wholeheartedly, and I've taken that message on behalf of the NFA and the members, of course, to Parliament. It's been consistent. I've told them that these are the things that we're looking for. I've had some people push back on me and say, you're always asking too much. What do you really want?
Right.
And the bottom line is that what we want is justice. For too long now, we have been demonized and scapegoated by all parties, right?
Oh, and we've been treated extremely shabbily, and we're not alone in this. We're not the only traditional conservative type group. And the other side of that, of course, is not all of our members would be conservative voters or supporters.
This is true.
We cover a broad spectrum, as you know,
do.
and that has to be considered whenever we're looking at these issues.
Absolutely, right? But bottom line is we're just looking for equality, right? So for over time, we've been marginalized through the legal system. There's a campaign afoot to paint us as some kind of criminals in waiting, which is completely unfair.
Yeah,
right?
that's Pam Damoff out there
Yes.
trying to pull that
With
new.
her famous saying, we're all
Yeah,
law abiding until we're not.
yeah.
You
Well,
know what? And she's my MP, so I think I told the story
wow.
before, which is very
Yep,
interesting. And I tried to talk to her before the election, during the election, and after the election. And it wasn't until I threatened to go to the local paper and basically complain about my MP, who's supposed to be representing me, not ignoring me, not taking my calls, not taking my emails,
yep,
rejecting things I'd slip under her door, right?
yep,
And finally, she came back and actually responded to me, which is
yep.
shameful. Actually, it's anyway. She's moved on now, but what you said exactly, and it perplexed me when she said this, that we are law-abiding firearms owners until we're not. And I'm going, okay, I
Wow.
get that. I get the meaning that it means that we are criminals in waiting. But then I thought about it for a second, and what she really actually means is that we are criminals until the government changes the rules, and then we become criminals, right?
Yeah, well, that's the point. And I mean, we're at a point now where we can't keep accepting the kinds of things they're wanting to do to us. I mean, I've always been someone who's believed in the rule of law, believed in order, stability, all of that. I'm basically a conservative, and I'm seeing things happen now that I just can't accept. These are not acceptable changes. What I'm hearing coming from government. I've been through some 6 rounds of gun grabbing over the years, and I'm not having it anymore. That's not acceptable to keep taking away people's property, destroying the value of that property, uh, trying to tar innocent people with the bad behavior of criminals and those who would be violent. It's not acceptable. And I think what we are going to see is continued pushback from people like ourselves who no longer feel that they can accept the nonsense coming from Ottawa about who can own what, where, when, and how.
And you're right. And you know what? But I do see some glimmer of hope. My last little stint in Ottawa, I had a nice discussion with an NDP MP, Scott Duval, on
Yes.
behalf of one of his constituents there. And I think over the course of our conversation, I think he started to understand the plight of law-abiding gun owners because
Yes, you were telling me about Scott. That's
his
good.
own constituent was basically ensnared by this travesty of a law, and he was, he was entrapped.
Yeah.
So, but when at the end of our conversation, basically, um, he seemed to the light went off in his head. I could see that in his eyes, and he says, I'm gonna take this back to our caucus, and maybe we can, from an NDP point of view, champion the cause of." Because they pretend to be social warriors or not. But here's a perfect opportunity of a community who's being treated with prejudice under the law. I mean, a perfect opportunity for the NDP to jump in and defend us. So
Yes,
it was
you would think
interesting to
so.
have that conversation and for him to actually accept the values and principles that we're putting forth.
And your assessment as the light went on in his eyes, he got it. Is that right?
Yes, for sure.
Good.
Yep.
That's
So
very
I'm
good.
hoping
Yeah.
to talk with their public safety shadow minister in the future. Unfortunately, with this, the recent virus thing now, face-to-face meetings are out of the question.
Yes, of course.
They've canceled all the lobby days that they usually have. So, but as they zig, we will zag, and
Yep.
we will, yeah,
We
we
have to
will
keep the
set up.
pressure up. We absolutely have to
Yeah,
keep the pressure up. And I'm,
we're going to set up video conferencing and
Perfect.
voicemails or just correspond via email, keep the lobbying going so that we can educate as many of these people as possible. Because once the this virus crisis goes away, the
and it
specter
will.
of civil disarmament certainly will reappear and it'll come on quickly. So we need to be prepared and have
Well,
people on our side.
given all the young women who've been buying handguns and shotguns in the last little while, I mean, one gun store owner told me that fully half of his clients that had come in and started buying firearms and ammunition were women because they felt the need to have something for protection.
Amen.
I think that maybe there's a little bit of a shift in public opinion about the value of firearms and firearms ownership, particularly when now people understand that there are a lot of controls in place to stop people from getting easy access to firearms. Most of them, of course, are completely unnecessary, but none of them prevent bad people from getting firearms. It just stops people who need firearms now. like our cartoon that we recently released, and more kudos to our cartoonist Nathan. That makes the whole issue pretty clear. I think it's a pretty clever assessment of the reality of what's going on in a lot of gun stores across this country right now. As
For
as
sure.
the soccer moms are going out and buying guns.
Well,
Yep.
I'm gonna say this: the gun stores can't keep the guns on the shelf. They are selling out quickly.
Yeah, what's your experience at Lance there, Jordan? I mean, you're right in the front lines there.
As soon as this COVID kicked up, we had herds of people coming in and purchasing guns. Again, a lot of females. Um, and we sold a lot of shotguns. We sold a lot of rifles, and a lot of people put in their application to get the pistol transferred to them.
What's the firearm of choice for people looking? Like I've seen the whole pistol, carbine, cartridge, rifles being sold. Everyone's dancing around why they want them, but it's all real clear why they want them.
The choice this time around was the bullpup shotguns, and
Right.
I think the reason was because you can buy it and take it home that day, being non-restricted.
Nice.
Right.
A lot of people don't want to buy a pistol and have to wait. Here in Ontario, it's 4 to 5 weeks.
Yes.
Wow.
And then they were unsure with the COVID and everything shutting down, how long it would take if the government was going to shut down, if the CFO's office was going to run slow. So it seemed to be bullpup shotguns and pistol caliber carbines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I've been seeing too. I mean, I think it's interesting. A lot of us in the firearms community tend to already own a fair bit of ammunition, firearms, and everything else. It's not that we're preppers or anything like this. It's just that we tend to shoot a lot, and most people tend to have thousands and thousands of rounds of ammunition for the firearms they own. It's not uncommon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I've been topping up some things as well too. And what I'm finding is that ammunition is starting to get really hard to come by. And I was looking for double aught buckshot, 223. Even magazines are. There's definitely a run going on. There's a run going on in the States. I just talked with my cousin in Texas. They can't get anything in the States as well too. So, hopefully the manufacturers are ramping up because there's definitely demand out there.
Oh, absolutely right, Charles. And the funny thing is the supply chain doesn't seem to be disrupted, but it's interesting to see what is considered an essential service. So when people are wanting to buy things for protection, all of a sudden they want to shut down gun stores. That's
Yes.
interesting. That's
Very
really
interesting.
quite interesting.
Yes. And the fear that's driving that, in my view, is a testament to their confidence and faith in state security. So
Right.
I think what they're realizing is that, especially since police are admittedly saying that they are taking less calls now because they too are afraid of contracting the virus.
Oh, of course
So,
they are.
so what does that mean in terms of responding to an emergency situation, right?
Yeah.
Leaves you by yourself. So, given that situation, who do you rely on? Only yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. So I think people get it, even people that are not new to guns or don't even have guns, they realize that they are vulnerable. These kind of situations that we're facing right now make that crystal clear in everybody's mind.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And this isn't a situation that's going to end soon. This could very well go on for weeks or months, as we said. And I think it's prudent for people to look after themselves, their families, their friends, their neighbors. Community is important at a time like this, but at the same time, you have to understand that there are wolves out there who will take advantage of people, who have not prepared themselves or are not willing to live by the rules of society and are quite prepared to go and take things from others. And I think all of us need to understand that.
For sure. Yeah, so we're just bunkered over here. I'm here with my family.
Yes,
Getting a little cabin fever. With all this
I can
time
see
on
you
my
there.
hands.
I can see the Rob Roy Mackinac there, Charles. You're looking very, very Canadian. I went
Thank
with sort
you.
of a Scottish tweed
Thank
tonight.
you. I take that
Jordan
as a
there, of
compliment.
course, ensconced with the Waffenzimmer, uh, and but I think it's important for everyone to understand it is a time to be with family and to take precautions.
Yes,
Follow the directions about washing your hands. Avoid touching your
absolutely.
face. I mean, we typically touch our faces 20 times in a very short period of time. It's very common for people to be to touch their face. I mean, I've gone touched my glasses while we've even been talking on this, and it's easy enough to do. But we've really got to try to take sensible precautions. Social distancing is the new phrase of the day. And when you have to go into work, which a lot of us have to do, there are people we have jobs that are essential to support the economy and make sure things keep working, keep that supply chain operating. That we're taking every precaution to be safe, and we're washing our hands all the time. Washing your hands is like putting on a new pair of gloves every time.
Absolutely. And just on that note about keeping the supply chain going, I encourage all the viewers out there to buy more guns and ammunition. Right?
Absolutely.
I'm sure you need more. So this is a great time. There's lots of good sales on. The problem is trying to get them. I've just put an order in today for some mags. They're on back order. Eventually I'll get them, but I'm trying my best from my personal point of view with all this time on my hands to support our gun retailers out there, the distributors and the exporters that make this all happen for us.
And it's also an excellent time to practice your reloading skills. Go down
Yes.
and clean off the reloading bench. Get those presses set up. Start sizing and decapping and setting ammunition in. It's a good time to do that. That's my project, is to get my own firearms room all set up again and get back at that. It's in many respects it's a bit of a respite, but work still has to get done. Of course, working from home, that's my burden now, and when I can get to the office, I do so. But again, it's all about keeping safe and keeping others safe.
Absolutely.
Right. Also, I want to say something else. There was a video that was published a little earlier from another gun org saying if you have cabin fever, take your non-restricted firearms and go shoot out in the back 40. Just keep in mind that everybody else is getting cabin fever too. So really make sure you know where your shot's going and make sure the area is clear. Right. We don't want anything going on there.
Yeah, there are lots of things you can do that don't involve having to contact other people. Cross country skiing, hiking, all those sorts of things, but they're not so bad. But again, you got to keep clean and keep the surfaces clean. And if you're showing any signs of sickness whatsoever, stay at home and don't take the chance of going out and infecting others or getting infection yourself and spreading to you and your loved ones.
I just want to say a special thank you to all the frontline people that are out there. I'm the sole person here that goes out of the house, so I have to get groceries once in a while. I also have an elderly mother that I have to look after, so I have to supply her with food and supplies as well too. So I'm taking extra precautions there. But it becomes very apparent who are the people that are most at risk, and we have, the people in the hospital. My own sister-in-law, she works at the hospital, but when I go to the grocery store, there's young people that are wiping down the carts and whatnot, and they're working there day after day. I just say a special thank you to all those people for keeping things going, because without them, we would have chaos, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And all those truck drivers, those first
Yes.
responders, the police, military, everybody else who's out there working to try to keep our society functioning in a sensible way. My hat's off to you. Here's a salute for you, and all the best.
Amen.
All right, guys. Well, that's pretty much going to wrap up episode 6. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and watching. Sheldon, Charles, Jordan. It's been fun.
Okay.
Thanks, Jordan.
Nice
All right,
see
guys. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.